To the attendees that's on, we're gonna be recording this so that it can kind of go out to the general public that wasn't able to make the meeting today. And with that, I will turn it over to Alex to kick us off.
All right, great. Thanks. Um, so thank you for coming to the Town of Superior Vision Zero Action Plan public meeting. My name is Alex Bullen, and I'm with the Town of Superior in the Public Works and Utilities Department. Tonight, we will discuss the town's Vision Zero Action Plan, what it means, how you can help shape it, and then we'll end with a discussion. The town is partnering with Boulder County and Consor Engineering, who has helped several neighboring cities develop their own Vision Zero Action Plan. If there are any questions after this meeting, my contact information will be available at the end of the presentation, or you can find it at on the town website, or it's just alexb@superiorcolorado.gov. And with that, I will turn it over to Consor to begin the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. Christian and I will go ahead and introduce ourselves. So my name is Nikki Reamer. I'm with Consor Engineers. I'm a transportation engineer. We're really looking forward to present to you guys today. We're partnered with the Town of Superior on developing a Vision Zero action plan. So with that, I will turn it over to Christian.
Thanks, Nikki. And I'm Christian Braco, also with Consor Engineers. I'm a transportation planner. Again, echoing what Alex and Nikki said, excited to be here with you today. Um, in in the interest of having as interactive session as possible, we'll just go ahead and take you off mute. So if you do, or give you speaking privileges. So if you do want to just chime in during the presentation and ask us some questions, then we're happy to do it that way. Otherwise, Nikki and I have a little bit of a presentation to offer, and then we're gonna open it up for Q&A and discussion. So again, feel free to just kind of jump in while we're presenting and ask us questions, and we'll aim to make this as interactive and fun as possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian, and thanks, Susan, for being here as well. So with that, kind of just goals of the meeting today. So we'll plan to discuss and kind of define like what is Vision Zero, and then provide information about the project background as well as the schedule. We've also completed some preliminary crash analysis as well. So we will kind of present that to you, as well as we've already done some public outreach events. So we'll kind of give a summary of where we're at with that and what we've heard so far. And then, as Christian mentioned, our intent is to make sure that we're not talking at you throughout the whole hour and a half here. We don't need to go the whole hour and a half if discussion doesn't lend itself there, but really kind of trying to format this, even though it's in a virtual setting, to be kind of more like that in-person open house feel where you could be kind of talking face to face with us. So just to preface that, our presentation will probably only go about 15 to 20 minutes or so, and then I'll leave time for discussion. And then we're really trying to promote an online survey that we have as well. So we'll kind of go over a little bit what that looks like and make sure that link gets out as well to you. So with that, just to kick us off with what is Vision Zero. So Vision Zero is a transportation concept that eliminates all fatalities and serious injuries for people using all modes of transportation. So with that vision, the concept of Vision Zero recognizes that humans make mistakes, but really kind of focuses on how the transportation system should be designed, or education and enforcement campaigns to really minimize those consequences in traffic accidents when human error does occur. So this map summarizes just a handful of cities and regions throughout the US that currently have Vision Zero action plans adopted. So through this process, the goal is that we'll develop a Vision Zero action plan for the town of Superior. And then that'll be adopted by the town. And eventually Superior will be a dot on this map as well. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about the safe system approach as well. Basically, if Vision Zero is the goal, safe system approach is the strategy of how to achieve Vision Zero. So this graphic over here on the right kind of just summarizes some principles from the safe systems approach. So basically, kind of what the safe system approach gets at is that death and serious injury is unacceptable. So while no crash is desirable, focusing on more of those crashes that result in severe injury or fatalities are the ones that we'll be kind of focusing most on throughout this development. Um, and then secondly, humans make mistakes. So it's inevitable that as humans, we're all going to make mistakes, but it's how can we make sure that we're designing the roadways to, when a mistake is made, minimize that impact. And with that, humans are vulnerable. So we're susceptible to kind of those crashes that happen at high speeds. So kind of along the lines of humans making mistakes, knowing that we're vulnerable, how can we, again, make sure that the transportation system is centered in a way to kind of align with those human vulnerabilities? And then the next piece is that responsibility is shared. So this includes everyone from the transportation system users themselves, so the people driving on the road, walking on the road, biking on the road, as well as designers, town staff from a policy level and design level, as well as kind of, even the people who are making the cars, the vehicle manufacturers. So kind of this whole safe system approach in VisionZero is shared. And then next, safety is proactive. So we don't want to wait until an injury or fatality crash occurs, but we want to kind of start addressing safety issues before a crash might occur. And then lastly, kind of through the safe systems approach, redundancy is really critical. So kind of making sure we're designing the roadway that has redundancy in a way that if one piece fails, there's kind of backup there to eliminate these types of crashes. So with that, specifically to this project, we're going to be building off of the concept of VisionZero and the safe system approach to develop this VisionZero action plan for the town of Superior. And kind of just a little bit of background here. So Boulder County, Lafayette, and Superior in 2023 applied for what's called a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Sometimes you'll hear that called SS4A. And really what they were awarded as part of this grant funding was for a planning demonstration grant for the development of an action plan. So that's really the first step. Once this action plan has been developed, the town's going to be able to go after implementation funding grants as well that kind of help align with some of the safety recommendations in the town. And ultimately, what this VisionZero action plan is going to create a list of specific actions and recommendations, noting responsibility for kind of how they're going to get implemented, as well as potential funding sources for implementation as well. So the schedule for this project, we kicked off in kind of late May time. We've started our data analysis during this piece, and we'll kind of be continuing that through early fall. And with our data analysis piece, we'll ultimately kind of use what we learn to develop project recommendations and prioritization, and then ultimately kind of figuring out performance measures is what we call them. So how, with our recommendations over time, are we going to be able to measure how effective they are? Once the plan is done and kind of once the project team isn't as involved in drafting the plan, how can the town set themselves up for kind of measuring those recommendations? And then lastly, kind of through early 2025, we'll be developing that kind of draft and final VisionZero action plan. So that's kind of the process of the plan development. A really important and critical piece of this project is going to be community and stakeholder engagement. So this is kind of broken down in two phases. Right now we're in phase one, and we're really just trying to get the word out to the public and get the public's input on kind of safety concerns or safety issues that might be perceived by the public, specific locations, general attitude towards traffic safety kind of during this first phase. And then phase two will be more towards the end of the year, late fall, early winter. And this will be kind of, we'll take our crash analysis and what we've heard from the public during phase one, kind of meld them together to make those recommendations. And then the phase two will be all about presenting those recommendations to the community and make sure that we're hearing feedback on that as well for those recommendations. And then these next few slides, just high level, are going to go over some crash history statistics in the town of Superior. So for the purpose of our analysis, we're going to be looking at 10 years of crash data. So we looked from 2013 to 2022. We're looking at many different crash trends, kind of year over year stats for all crashes, which is kind of this graph here in the left. So had kind of seen an uptick 2013 to 2015, a significant decrease in crashes in 2016, and then rising a bit again till 2019, and then kind of dipping a little bit in the COVID times and through 2022 as well. So another thing that we look at too is also with this data set, what types of crash types are we seeing as well? So the most common crash type in Superior during this time period were rear end crashes. About 30% of those crashes occurred at rear end. 15% were fixed object. So that's basically a fixed object could be something like a single vehicle crash to a traffic signal or a signpost, for example. And then a broadside crash, also a lot of times called a T-bone crash. This is, basically when a front of a vehicle strikes the side of a vehicle. There's about 15% of those types of crashes. Sideswipe crashes and vehicles that the sides are hitting each other in a collision. About 10% of those are that types of crashes. And then lastly, 10% approach turn crashes. So these are more like your left turn crashes when someone kind of fails to yield right of way during a left turn. A lot of these also result in kind of those T-bone crashes as well. And then lastly, just over these 10 years, there's 8 crashes that resulted in a serious injury, and then 1 resulted in a fatality as well. And then we're also looking geographically where these crashes are located. So the image on the right kind of just shows a heat map of where there's crashes. The more orangish, reddish colored means there's a denser area of crashes here, which basically just means there's more crashes in those areas that appear yellow. 65% of the crashes in Superior are occurring at intersections. And then we've just got a list of the top 5 locations as well. So first 2 being on McCaslin Boulevard, so McCaslin Boulevard and Marshall Road, and then McCaslin Boulevard and US 36. And then the third is Marshall Road and Sycamore Street. And then 4 and 5 are both on Rock Creek Parkway at 88th and then Colton Road. So with that, a really critical part of developing the VisionZero action plan is going to be looking at that crash data. We'll be doing a pretty extensive analysis over the coming months, but paired with that, community engagement is a really important piece. So currently we've got a survey open through August 31st. So there's this QR code here, and you can see the project website as well. This will be popping up on the screen at the end of the presentation. So if you do miss this now, there will be opportunity to access this later if you've not already taken that. But really what we're trying to learn from this survey, we've got kind of a general survey that asks just kind of high level safety questions, but then there's also a map to supplement it as well. And we're really trying to learn locations where maybe the community feels unsafe driving or walking or biking or taking transit or using a mobility device. And that'll help us supplement the kind of more technical crash data as well. So learn about those locations or maybe near misses are happening or just uncomfortable to be out. And ultimately we'll take that to supplement the crash data and identify if there's any locations that we might be missing that might not be popping up in the crash data. With that, I think Christian put this link in the chat, so that should hopefully be easy for you to click on. But if not, again, this will be showing at the end of our presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christian.
Thanks, Nikki. So like Nikki mentioned, we're doing quite a bit of work to understand what the crash history has been and what the data is telling us, but we really need to hear from community members to understand locations that you're concerned about, whether you feel unsafe driving, walking, biking in certain locations, or if there's a spot where you've experienced a lot of near misses, or a location where it's really hard to take a left turn, for example, and you feel like it's that could potentially be an issue at some point, those types of things, we're definitely interested to hear that. And it really helps us build a picture and an understanding of what's going on in Superior when it comes to transportation safety. So far, we've been out in the community um, in two ways. So one is through the online survey that Nikki mentioned, and that's kind of a two-part thing. There's a survey with sort of a corresponding map where you can drop pins, and we'll show you in a moment what that looks like. And we've also gone out into the community during the 4th of July festival. So if you were there, and we may have seen you, talked to a lot of community members about what their safety concerns are. And as you can see on the screen, we had a large format map of Superior, and folks wrote down what they were worried about on stickies. And we also, a little hard to see on the presentation, but we had little stickers that you could put if you had a concern about driving in a particular location, or you could use a little bike sticker for places where it feels unsafe to bike. And that's really been helpful to hear directly from community members what's on their mind, and we'll be able to respond to a lot of those concerns through this planning process. And then clearly we're here this evening together, which is great, and we're excited that you joined. So thanks for taking the time. Right. As I mentioned, this is a screenshot of what the online survey looks like. So it's all on one web page, and I put a link in the chat so you can visit it directly if you haven't done so already. On the left side of the page, there's a little bit of project information and then a survey that is pretty brief. It's designed so that you don't have to spend too much time on it, but it kind of gets at some of the critical things that we're curious about. So kind of where you're concerned about within our study area. So in this case, Superior, how you typically travel, how safe you feel on different modes of travel, and then what your personal experiences have been like in terms of safety outcomes. So have you been involved in a crash? And if so, if you can offer any details just to help our build our understanding. And then on the right-hand side there, you can see our interactive map. So folks can basically drag an icon from that menu that you see across the top, drag it into a specific location on the map. And then you can add a comment that kind of describes what your concern is. And it even gives you an option to upload a photo or attach an image if you want to do that. So that's another great way for us to hear from community members and learn some of the specifics that's on folks' minds. So that's been really helpful. And so far, between the map and the survey, we've heard from a little over 120 residents, or rather 120 community members. And we're continuing to get new survey responses. So if you know anyone who's interested, certainly feel free to send them the link and encourage them to give us some information. So far, it's been pretty split between folks who live in Superior and then folks who either visit or commute in from other communities like Boulder, Lafayette, Broomfield. And as you can see, it's primarily been folks who drive. So about 80% of respondents to date, kind of that's the primary way they get around. So that's kind of been their primary thing that they're focusing on when they give input. And we have some questions in the survey about how safe folks feel that I alluded to. So just to give you a sense of to date, what we've been hearing when we ask folks how safe they feel driving, about a third, and again, this is folks who are responding specifically to Superior, say that they feel safe driving. Almost half do not. Walking is more split, so about a third feel safe, and a little bit less than a third feel unsafe. And then, interestingly, if for biking, 42% feel safe, 16 feel unsafe, and I think that does kind of show that. And we heard about this at the 4th of July event, that people like the extent to which Superior is invested in more kind of facilities for folks biking and has made it more comfortable. We also have a question about whether folks have been involved in a crash in the last 5 years, and if so, where. So kind of so far, we've heard that 7% of survey respondents who are responding to kind of concerns about Superior directly have been involved in a crash in the town in the last 5 years. So on the one hand, we kind of have a general breakdown of how safe or unsafe people feel. And then we have an indication that it's so far, thankfully, it's a relatively low share of respondents who have been involved in a crash in the town. And then when we look at the interactive map and what we're hearing from folks there, like Nikki mentioned earlier, this kind of lines up with what we were expecting to see in some ways from the crash analysis. So Rock Creek Parkway, specifically at Coal Creek Drive and the 88th Street roundabout and at the Colton Road intersection, which is one of the top hotspots for crashes. That's where folks feel unsafe. And some of what we're hearing is that there's perhaps a lack of awareness on how to navigate the roundabouts and how to kind of interact between drivers and pedestrians and bicyclists at the roundabouts. So that's something that's good for us to know. And then there's a perception of speeding on Rock Creek Parkway. On McCaslin, we heard quite a bit about McCaslin at the community outreach event and through the survey. I would say one of the top locations that we're hearing about is that Marshall Road intersection, just south of 36. And so folks have been flagging concerns about red light running, and then also folks making kind of abrupt lane changes mid-turn, which can either cause issues or it has obviously caused some problems. And then the other item that we heard a little bit about so far is speeding on local roadways, specifically in neighborhoods where schools are present. So that's something that the project team is looking into in more depth to understand what's happening there, since that seems to be a concern that's spread kind of throughout the community. And so far, we haven't pinpointed specific neighborhoods where that's a problem. It seems like it's a concern sort of across the board. All right. Well, with that, Susan, you're welcome to come off mute. We just have a few kind of prompts here, and we'd love to hear your input. If you'd rather type into the chat, you're certainly welcome to do that. But we're just curious to hear from you as a community member, whether what we've heard to date, that I was just kind of summarizing, resonates with you at all. If that sort of aligns with what your experience has been. And I'm not sure if you're a town resident or not. But yeah, just I'll throw that initial question out there if you have any thoughts.
Hi there, Susan Chevalier. I'm a resident of downtown Superior, and I'm actually here with my husband, Lauren, and we are both absolutely astonished that we are literally the only ones that cared enough to come and do this. I am floored. So I live in downtown Superior, as I just said, and I drive every day all the way down to Denver Botanic Gardens. So I have a 23-mile round trip. The highways are a lot more terrifying, I think, than the roads here in Superior, but I have seen a ton of things on a daily basis, and I just don't understand, for example, right at the bottom of our subdivision, we have this roundabout, and people are constantly making a left turn from the roundabout, from the right lane, with no regard for the cars that are to the left of them. So all the speeding, the red light running, I see it literally every day. And I think I have a question, and I'm not sure how related it is to this particular work, but you mentioned the words enforcement campaigns at the beginning of the meeting. And one of the things that I really see as a problem is a complete lack of police presence. And even hearing from larger police departments like Denver that say they are no longer going to even pull people over for minor infractions. So in my mind, it is reinforcing this message to people that we are basically living in a lawless society and you can do whatever you want on the roadways. So I don't know if that is kind of what you were wanting to hear, if I am addressing the relevant questions.
Absolutely. Well, anything kind of transportation safety related, whether it's infrastructure quality or things like presence of law enforcement, any experiences you've had, like the situation you described with kind of observing people not obeying the rules of the road at the roundabout, and then absolutely understanding your perception of sort of the role law enforcement plays is all really useful input. So thank you.
And this is Lauren Chevalier, Susan's husband. And I want to echo what Susan just said about what appears to be a lack of enforcement that actually is on multiple levels. So, Susan mentioned what appears to be a lack of police willingness to ticket speeding or reckless driving, and I'll, that is equally present, I think, on the highways as it is in the community. Because here in the community, so we live on Discovery Parkway, which is posted for 15 miles per hour, which admittedly is probably a little slower than it should be, but people are driving 35 miles per hour and maybe more. So it's not even close to the speed of traffic is not even close to the posted speed on the part of some drivers. And we've never seen any police enforcement of speeding on our street. So in that case, one of the things that we think would be helpful would be consideration of putting in speed bumps, just as there are speed bumps further to the east of downtown Superior and the new development where Toll Brothers is building a lot of homes, and there are speed bumps there, and they're effective. So that's one consideration that would be wonderful to include in a report. And like Susan said, that some of our other observations may not be relevant for this project, but we also see a huge number of unregistered vehicles. Yes. And it seems like when you look at the cars on the road that are driving the most irresponsibly, there is a correlation between that and whether they've got expired tags or temporary tags, or in some cases, no license plates at all. Mm-hmm. And again, we just ask ourselves, why is this not being enforced the way it used to be? And how much of a contributor is that to accidents and sometimes, unfortunately, fatalities?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. That's an interesting question. We certainly haven't come across any data on that topic, so we don't know the extent to which it's been studied or not. But that's certainly an interesting theory, and I think generally speaking, it's just great to get your input on sort of what you'd like to see in your community in terms of enforcement for roadway regulations.
And one other enforcement item that I think would directly impacts us from our home. So our house is a zero lot line, single family home, sort of squeezed between Discovery Parkway and Canary Lane. And so Canary Lane is the primary access for a number of townhouse buildings into their garages. And those garages have very, very short driveways, not a deep enough driveway to park a car on. And so what has been happening more and more is some of the residents for those townhouses are parking literally in the middle of, well, on one half of Canary Lane, adjacent to their 4-foot deep driveway, because they can't park in the driveway, they just park in the street. And Susan has reached out to the fire department and the police office and said, well, this effectively is blocking a fire lane. And I think she actually got the attention of both the fire department and the police, but there's some coordination apparently between the town of Superior and the Metro District that is responsible for downtown Superior that makes it challenging for law enforcement to enforce things like don't park in a fire lane in our particular neighborhood. So there's some interplay between the Metro District and the town of Superior that doesn't seem to be working right, that just perpetuates the problem of people parking in the fire lane.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. And sorry, Alex, I know you have your hand up, but just to quickly, and Nikki we'll get more into this in a bit, but just as we look towards developing the actual VisionZero plan for Superior, we'll want to consider kind of a full suite of recommendations that hit at the different components of the safe system approach. So one of those considerations is going to be sort of what are the regulatory or policy solutions that could address some of the safety challenges that we learn about, and that could very well be one of them. So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Alex, did you have something? Sorry, I see that your hand's been raised for a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for providing that feedback. I just wanted to clarify which roundabout you were referring to at the beginning.
Is
Was that
the question for me, for Susan?
yes, McCaslin and Main or McCaslin and
No,
Gateway?
actually right at downtown Superior where the triptych sculpture is. That's Maine? Okay, sorry. Yes. I
Okay.
still don't know all the street names apparently.
Okay, no problem. I figured that was the one. That's the
Yes.
highest volume one, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
But we've seen questionable driving in the roundabout that is on 88th and Rock Creek as well,
Well, yeah, that one was noted.
which you had already noted in your presentation.
Sure. Yeah, do you think is it a general, or do people not know how to drive through roundabouts? Could we do a better job with signage, or is it an education piece, or I mean,
I
what's your
think
thoughts on that?
people seem to be personally challenged with how to drive. If you're going to turn right, get in the right lane, not the left lane, and use your turn signal when you're coming up on the exit that you're planning on turning. Maybe it's a combination of some education and signage. I don't know. I don't know if I've seen a roundabout anywhere with signage that tells people, only turn right from the right lane. You would think it would be I mean, you think it would be obvious.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's helpful, especially that Rock Creek 88th Street roundabout. That's primarily locals using that.
Right.
So yeah, maybe we can put together an education campaign on that one.
Right.
But I agree, there's the roundabout signage, there's a variety of ways to sign them. There's not exactly consistent guidance with the MUTCD, which is the federal guidelines for traffic signage. So maybe we could take a look at that and try to make that more clear.
And another comment that I have is more of a theory than anything where there's data that I know of to support it. But when the high schools removed driver's ed and you know, young kids, were more or less on their own to learn how to drive or to pick a driving school or not. And at the same time, with the advent of a lot of video games, especially through the pandemic, it just seems like we've taught some of our young citizens bad driving practices, or they've learned bad driving practices on their own because they weren't being taught the right way to do it in the schools. And I know that's not something that we can change here tonight, but again, it's just.
But I guess what the point would be, if especially the younger drivers are not getting driver's ed in school, then somehow deploying education to them could possibly be helpful.
Yes.
So it sounds like you'd potentially like to see some sort of awareness building component emerge from the plan.
Definitely. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, you kind of go on autopilot while you're driving, and way too many people, always, with the phone in their hands and texting. Just helping people to be more conscious of what they're doing and how it can, change somebody's life, and somebody can lose their life because of like one stupid mistake.
And in addition to distracted driving, it seems like there's an increasing number of young people, mostly young males, who are driving on city streets and the highways like it is a racetrack, and weaving in and out of cars and passing and cutting cars off. It just seems like the incidence of that has skyrocketed in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, and there is that. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. There's legislation coming for the state of Colorado to enforce more hands-free driving
Yep.
with cell phones. And it doesn't fix everything because folks still have voice command and the screens on the dashboard. But I think that's an attempt to address at least the distracted driving portion.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, this has been really helpful. Are there it really appreciate all your input sort of on the driver behavior side. Kind of curious if there's any additional locations around the community that you're concerned about. Other roundabouts or specific roadways where you're witnessing some issues.
Certainly the roundabouts in the because when I go to do my shopping over in the Superior Marketplace, there's a roundabout there. And again, people just don't seem to understand how they work. I'm astonished.
Kind of curious to get your thoughts on it's been great to hear about some of the concerns that you have and some of the things that you're witnessing. Kind of curious to see what if you can just share some thoughts on what a safe street would look like to you. What does that mean when you think of a safe street?
Really, in a residential area, I mean, we don't need speed bumps on every street, but I think where there is a larger observed difference between the posted limit and the actual speed that people are driving, there may be good reason to put speed bumps in those areas. So it might be some kind of a survey or a study to determine on some of the main roads what the speed is on average, and compare that average speed with the posted speed and see if there are particular streets that really are outliers that would benefit from some speed bumps. And again, Discovery Parkway, yeah, that goes by our house would seem to, I'm guessing that it would show up as an outlier. But there may be others, and speed studies would probably help if there's funding to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, on a similar vein, I was just curious about your observation about the roundabouts. Is this unfamiliarity with roundabouts something that you see more in Superior, less in Superior? Do you see it in surrounding communities? Is that something that you thought about?
I have never in my life had as many people make a left turn from the right lane than at the McCaslin and Main roundabout. There is something about that people just are, I don't know. Want to go into downtown Superior. They're in the right lane. They don't put their blinker on. They just cut across in front of me. It happens almost every day.
Okay, so that's McCaslin heading south from 36
Yes,
and then turning left on Main.
correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely, Christian and Nikki, if you can note that, definitely note that.
Another observation is that in the areas where there's a lot of construction, and whether it's reconstruction from the fires or new construction like the Toll Brothers development, it seems like the trucks and the commercial vehicles that are part of the construction projects are among the more blatant violators.
Absolutely.
In what way? Could you provide some examples?
Yeah,
With the roundabout turning specifically, or other types of behaviors?
I have not seen commercial trucks doing the weird roundabout stuff other than not yielding and going too fast, because they, as the commercial drivers, I think they know where they're going, but they're just in too much of a rush to get there.
All right. Is there any additional concerns that you'd like us to consider or be aware of? And this has all been really great. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. I mean, I was so pleased to hear about this. And I am just astonished that more people aren't hearing about this or giving their feedback.
Yeah, we appreciate your making the time available and listening to our thoughts. For the most part, I think we've covered the main observations that we've had many conversations around the dinner table.
Yes, this is a constant topic of conversation.
Yep.
One follow-up question for you guys. How did you hear about this meeting? Was it through social media push or like the weekly or monthly newsletters? Just want to make sure the word is getting out there.
I believe it was a Town of Superior email, and I think I get every single one that they send out of like every type, and I actually pay attention to them.
And that's how I saw it as well.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming. I'm a little surprised at the participation too, though we do have some more meetings coming up, and we've had some in-person opportunities. So I know we're getting good feedback overall.
Oh, good.
Um,
That's good. It
and
should be a community project.
yeah, absolutely. And we'll, with the town, we'll continue to promote this and try to get feedback. And then if you have friends or neighbors that you think would be interested in providing feedback on the survey, that's really valuable. There's that QR code and that link that you can share. Really, the more feedback we can get, the better.
Yep, I'll share it with the neighbors. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
Susan and Lauren, if you have any, we've been peppering you with questions. If you have any questions for us, we're all yours. Certainly happy to. Um, if you have any, questions about the overall planning process or anything like that, we're happy to chat.
Well, yeah, to that point, is the outcome of the research that you're doing right now, is it going to be a report to the city council? Or what is the expected outcome of all of this?
Sure. Yeah, I
You,
can
you can go,
speak to that.
Alex.
So the product from this is a VisionZero action plan, which will have a variety of recommendations for improving traffic safety. Holistically, though, it'll be available to the public. And then it's also going to play a role in we are updating the town's transportation master plan, and we're also updating the town's comprehensive plan. So there's a lot of planning going on, and they will all kind of tie together as far as looking at roadway improvements, safety improvements, pedestrian connectivity. Um, so
I do have one question. The Metro District, there's just this whole concept of, we live in the town of Superior, but the Metro District takes care of it. And I understand that the Metro District just recently signed some kind of a contract with the Boulder Sheriff to give them permission to ticket people on Canary Lane if they're, blocking the fire lane. Is there, in what you're doing, cooperation or any involvement at all with the Metro District, or are they just not involved in any way?
sure, yeah, we do collaborate with the Metro District. We have contacts with them pretty regularly. They're kind of they're similar to an HOA
Yeah.
in that the streets are private and they have their own board of directors. We are in contact with them. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
And even that concept of the streets are private, and it is something I don't fully understand, because it seems like if a ordinance is not being followed, being broken, law enforcement should have jurisdiction everywhere, Metro District or not. But it sounds like that's not always the case.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure about the legal specifics. I know we have several communities with private roads in Superior, along with the commercial properties with private roads. So I can't speak to the inner workings of that. But if you are interested, I could probably connect you with someone that can explain it better.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would like to understand how that works. And especially when it doesn't seem to be working well.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, if you can throw your email, good email for you in the chat, um, I'll try to find someone that knows better than I do about that.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
And kind of while you're doing that too, I can go ahead and kind of just go through some next steps. If there's any other questions or comments that you guys have after I go through this, feel free to speak up. Not trying to end the conversation by any means. Just want to make sure we get through it. So kind of next steps for us, we're basically going to take all of what we learned from the safety analysis and then what we've learned from all of the public outreach. So our pop-up event, our online survey, what we're learning from you tonight. We've been recording the meeting and thoroughly documenting with notes kind of everything you guys are saying. So we're going to use those pieces to help inform development of the draft recommendations. And those are kind of more, will look like more the engineering, kind of like roadway specific recommendations, as well as kind of what we call the more non-engineering, which is along the lines of like potentially educational campaigns and the enforcement pieces that we're chatting through as well. And once we've got those draft recommendations, we'll come back to the community again. So like I said, this like late fall, early winter, we'll be doing another round of pop-ups. We'll have like some type of online survey push to review those, as well as another planning on another public meeting as well. Just different formats to that kind of align with reaching as many people as possible. And then what we learn based on those draft recommendations, we'll end up developing that draft VisionZero action plan that will be kind of focused on recommendations and strategies of implementation and funding, things like that as well. And then lastly, just how you can help. I think just being here tonight and giving your input is huge and really, really appreciated. So just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to be there. The online survey, if you haven't taken that yet, you can access via this link that Christian put in the chat or use your phone to scan this QR code. Feel free to share this with your friends and fellow residents. That survey is open until August 31st. And then similarly, just be on the lookout kind of for that late fall, early winter. We'll be pushing that out the same way through the newsletters and through the social media as well for the town of Superior. And then with that, just want to say thank you. Both Alex and my contact information is over here. So feel free to take a picture or whatever, but if you don't hesitate to reach out if you've got additional follow-up questions. I know Alex and you guys were going to connect on that Metro District question, but just wanted to provide our contact information if you've got any other questions that come up.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you
Yeah,
both.
thanks.
Yes.
Have a good evening.
Have a great night.